western branch line is one of the most site-rich locations on the island of Sodor. The passenger services are handled by Oliver and Duck, two former Great Western engines, proud of their heritage. The two are good friends and get along well, though sometimes Oliver's ego gets the better of him, and it's up to Duck to put him in his place. One of these instances began one morning when Oliver and Duck were waiting at their sheds at Arlesborough. The firelighter was suffering from a splitting headache and was struggling to get Duck's fire lit. He had already managed to get Oliver fired up, and the Autodink decided to take advantage of this.
Well, Duck, I knew you were getting old, but I didn't think you were to the point yet where you were struggling to get up in the morning.
Piss off. If I recall correctly, you were the one struggling to get a flame up when you were stranded in that scrapyard.
Yeah, and I made it out of there nonetheless. I got a cool story to tell and looked like a badass doing it. The chicks dig a guy who lives dangerously, Duck. Ain't that right, Izzy?
Don't flatter yourself, Olive Oil. You almost died.
Key word, almost. I cheated death with a smile. Monty over here was preserved decades before they started pumping out the diseasels. You've been pampered your whole life and it's made you soft. Mentally and physically, it would seem.
Duck was deeply offended by this, but tried not to show it. He just sat quietly as Oliver continued to verbally berate the pannier tank. When the firelighter managed to finally get his fire lit, Duck steamed swiftly into the yard to collect his coaches, cursing the firelighter's obsessive drinking habits under his breath as he did. Before long, Duck was steaming through the coastal scenery. The weather soon put his spirits up, but he still wanted to get his own back at Oliver for his teasing, to prove he wasn't soft. As he pulled into Halltrough, he saw Bulstrode sitting sad and solitary on the beach, in the same spot he'd been beached at since the incident in Knapford Harbor. Children were throwing food into his hull, and the seagulls were swooping down to eat it. As Duck sat listening to Bulstrode hurl insults at literal kindergarteners, an idea came to him.
That'll show Oliver how hard I am.
Later that day, Duck arrived back at Arlesborough for a rest. He saw Rex shunting some ballast trucks in the miniature engine's yard. He decided to put his plan into action.
Driver, do you happen to have any human food on you by chance?
Well, my wife packed me lunch this morning. Not sure if it's meant for human consumption or not.
Perfect. You're not going to eat it anyway.
Well, I didn't say that.
Hey Rex, my driver has something for you.
Later, Oliver had been rostered to take some ballast trucks. He had collected some empties and shunted them under the chute. He was so full of himself that the small pieces of food Rex's driver was throwing down from above went completely unnoticed. Before long, the auto tank was rushing along the coast. He heard the calling of the gulls and saw a flock of them flying parallel.
I say, there's a large flock of seagulls, Mr. Oliver.
Dynamic deduction, Einstein. Glad to see you're concentrating on your brake van duties. Sure would be a pity if you ditch them to observe the most generic white bread-ass birds in existence.
Short moments, Oliver wished he would have paid more attention to the birds. Out of instinct, Oliver glanced over at the birds and was just in time to see the entire flock of roughly 40 birds kamikazing directly towards him.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
I agree, Mr. Oliver. You do need Jesus.
Before Oliver knew what was happening, the seagulls were perched on his boiler, funnel, and cab, pecking hungrily.
Ow! Ugh! Get off me, you inferiors!
Unfortunately, the birds didn't seem to care much about the caste system and stayed comfortably atop the western engine.
Beg pardon, Mr. Oliver, but it seems they don't seem to care much about the caste system.
The birds accompanied Oliver on his travels all the way to Tidmouth. Oliver wasn't sure what hurt more, his ego or his paint, which now sported deep white stains. When they stopped to drop Oliver's trucks off in the yard, the driver got out to see what the birds were doing.
So, what are they doing up there?
Well, it would appear that they're eating?
Eating what? Coal?
No, it appears to be canned dog food or something of that nature.
What? How in the hell did that get up there?
Quack.
What are you on about Oh. I'm gonna kill him. Duck, what on earth were you thinking? Those birds could have seriously injured someone.
Oh, I think they have injured someone. Your image, that is. But beg pardon, I hope you don't mean to imply I would do such a thing. You said it yourself. I'm too soft to do something like that.
I'm going to get you back for this, you know.
With all due respect, Mr. Oliver, just take the L.
Shut up, Toad.
Oliver eventually came around and saw the funny side, and the two engines continued to work happily together on the little western branch line.